I wanted to get right into some JavaScript commands, but realized there's a lot of tools, if you will, and things that we kind of need to be familiar with before we could even really start talking about the JavaScript. So in this video, I'm going to mainly be looking at the screen and stuff and trying to introduce some tools and things you'll be using as you get acquainted with Vue.js. So, a newer browser is probably one of the first things we need to talk about. And of course, Chrome is an awesome one for developers, but I'm sure you could use Firefox and others. Some things to be aware of. Let me write this here. I'll put newer browser in our notepad up here, our yellow sticky note. And just making a statement that Chromium has been accepted as the standard recently. Even Microsoft and Edge have buckled. And Chromium stands for the open source project that Chrome is based on. So even Microsoft products are going to support this. So newer browser. If you don't do it, I'm not real familiar with it. Haven't done it successfully yet, but if you use an older browser, you have to polyfill, you have to install different tools to make up for the functions that don't exist, or to make them, if you will, make older browsers kind of fake like they have the newer functions. Polyfill's the term you'll run into, but hopefully we can get up to date and not have to have that skill set of polyfilling for most of us. Another thing is getting Chrome up to date. I'll go ahead and just launch Chrome just so it's visual and you see it there. Not that you need to see Chrome, we all know about it, but just today, getting this material ready, things weren't working. Some of the new commands I wanted to show you, and it turned out the Chrome version was older, and things changing that quick that things would not work already just from my Chrome version not being right. So it's in kind of your help about. You can see I hit that icon up there, top of Chrome, go down to help about Google Chrome, and it will actually auto try to update if you go there. Might fix some of your problems if you start having them. Another thing that might be new to some developers is this CORS, I'll say. I'll say get Chrome up to date or something like that. Keep Chrome up to date. We'll put that in our notes. And I'll also say, what was that? The cores is something to be aware of. If you haven't bumped into this, you're unfortunately about to start in this world, at least for now. So it's cross, we'll put that there, origin resource sharing is what that stands for. And they added security over the years in JavaScript, where people hacking, if you will, or doing things to other people's machines they should not be, and they tried to add security where you couldn't grab resources from other machines, stopped grabbing scripts and things. You could grab images and things, but not run scripts and things. They added that. That turned out, i.e., Microsoft kind of ignoring that security almost, and at least on an intranet. But Chrome and these other browsers respect it. So as we start doing things, once in a while, you're going to start getting these CORS errors that, hey, you can't access that site. It's a different, if you will, DNS entry, or it fools it sometimes. Even if it's on the same, it checks and says, I need to be on the same resources here, or else have permission via CORS to do that. So, another thing, fundamental piece of this Vue and basically most new development is Node, or Node.js. You've been hearing that. And I think you all know. Let's go ahead and kill this right here, and we'll put Node.js. Node.js is really JavaScript, isn't it? But it's like a runtime, almost like we've had with Java for years, where JavaScript, we all know, was just a scripting language in a browser. But now they've made it where JavaScript can run on your machine. And I've already done it on this PC, and I know my developers are so slick I don't need to help them, but install Node.js. You would find the website, of course. You would need to pick whether you were a Windows machine or not, and whether you're 64-bit or 32-bit. You'll run the installer package there for Windows. And when you get done, Node should be on your machine, and there'll be some things in the program files somewhere. I meant to look that up and forgot to find the exact folder. Let's see if I can find it here. Program files. there we are. There's a program files Node.js and a bunch of stuff in there with your node.exe. So that gets Node on your machine so that you can be running these tools. Let's see what's next in our notes here. Yeah, when you're running Node and similar things, I believe Npm is installed out of the box when you install that. And that is a package manager. If you're not familiar with that, it's like NuGet for those of you that are in our .NET shops, our C#. We use NuGet. We get packages all the time off the internet. And NPM is similar for packages with Node. And so we will be installing packages from NPM a lot with using Vue. There is, while we're mentioning that, the NPM, there is a file, NPM, we've mentioned it, there's a file that's hidden called .npmrc. Matter of fact, I've got mistyped that though, npmrc. What that hidden file is probably NPM. It's probably standing for release candidate, is what some people think that means, but that file is where you go to download your NPM packages. By default, it goes to the public site there, but that file and that user directory is a hidden file. Turns out that's new knowledge for some of us, that these whatever are usually hidden files, and you're going to be bumping into some of that. We did notice that with like tfignore or tsignore files in our Azure repos and things, but you're going to be using some whatever files in your configurations for Vue stuff. So let me think here. You know, another tool that most of us have at least used as an editor is Visual Studio Code. Some people, for budget reasons, other reasons, do not have Visual Studio Professional or a larger scale install that. They use just Visual Studio Code. And the truth is, with all these tools, it's pretty good. You don't hardly need Visual Studio, the whole thing, but it does give you a lot of extra tools, having the professional packages, and it opens up a lot of options if you've paid for it. So, but Visual Studio Code used a lot. And so I'm going to drop to a command prompt here. Made assumptions again. I usually just click the button. I type CMD, but you can find it, icons, but find your command prompt. And sometimes you've probably learned you have to run that as an administrator for certain tasks. This is not one of them, I do not believe. But you can run a command prompt as an admin for certain functions. But we get that up, and I'm just going to go back to the root of my machine, and I'm going to make a directory demo. And so now we have a demo directory, and I'm going to, of course, move into that directory, cd into demo, and of course it's empty. And I am going to attempt this command. I believe this is correct. I'm rusty. I'm not even rusty. I'm not even experienced enough to be rusty. I keep having to look things up, but I'm going to use the npm init, and it knows I'm in that directory, and it says, hey, do you want to make a package based off that directory name you're in? And sure, I'll take that in. You can change all this, but you can give descriptions and change the default launch file, default index.js. There's all kind of testing, what's the word, unit test type things, and setting up repositories, but author. But it's basically building a JSON file for you that helps your little application know what to do. So we've been seeing, I'm going to go ahead and hit yes for OK, but you might recall as you looked at .NET Core things or these files, you're like, what in the world, all this complex stuff? But this is where it has moved to. A lot of these apps, that these JSON files config, you add to them. And so out of the box, bam, we've already got, let's take a directory. There it is, the package JSON. And for Ornis, I'll just do code, And I don't know if you have to do this. I'll put a dot sometime to current directory, but that launches Visual Studio Code in that current directory. And so we can easily look at that JSON file now. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and drag this down, make that look bigger for you, maybe. Well, you dirty dog. I was hoping that would make it big, and it's not really seeming to help much. So anyway, there's our JSON content with all those answers we gave and stuff like that in our thing. You know, in Visual Studio Code, let me find the thing here. Notice I'm in my folder here. It's showing me, and there is like a new file right there. There's how you could add a new file. You know, let's say I wanted to make some notes for myself or something. You know, my own notes. So it's that simple using Visual Studio Code. There's a terminal, by the way, and we can pop a new window up here, and you know, you're down here and a terminal within it, and that's going to be handy as you start using some tools you might like with Vue that are more command line type things. And you can download other shells and things to run. You can use, I think, a PowerShell. You can use Bash and just whatever floats your boat. You can get into that, or just use the default. Will probably work fine for now. So that's another part of Visual Studio Code. There's search features, searching whole directories for file content, very useful for that. And there's extensions. So this is really, really powerful, and I know I haven't even begun to look into it. So Visual Studio Code, very useful. Let's see here. Back to my example. I could probably do it right here. I'm in demo. I believe I just took a directory. I believe in demo I might be able to do my commands right here instead of jumping out. Let's try this. Let's try npm install express. See if that works for us. So this is an npm command that you will be using. And when you know in npm what your package name is you want, you can say npm install that package. And so if we look up here now, you'll see in my folders of my project, look at that. I now have a node modules with a bunch of junk in it. Let me shrink that back up. And it made a lock file, and it still has my readme.txt. But we just installed a package npm that had a bunch of dependencies, and it slammed all them in there. And the one we picked is called Express. And that's actually a little web server that, I mean, you can use it for entire projects instead of IIS. If you go out on your own, you might use Express to save money, or things of that nature, to be more open source. And while we're there, let me go ahead and try to add a file, new file here. Remember how we just did that? Going to put it right in the root here. Maybe. Yep. There I am down at the bottom. I'm going to type app.js. And I just did a tutorial shortly before this. So you can search and find this on the internet very simply. Here is the code from that demo on the internet. If this works for us, you can see from the tutorial Google like Express Hello World app, and it'll show you this. But you installed the npm package Express, and it just tells you the require command. And see, already in just our demo, we're almost getting into code that might, well, that does involve some of these new JavaScript commands we want to get to. So it's that intertwined with the new JavaScript commands that you might not be familiar with. But here we have constants, and we're requiring a package. We're making a class or an object. And let's see here. We got us a function here we're making a call to. But basically, for your hello world, you're copying and pasting. Let's save it. And I believe that I can say, no, it was node app.js for this one. Let's try node app.js. So node is running. And notice this is JavaScript. newer JavaScript, but we're using Node to run it on a machine, and it is saying can't find app.js. I thought I just put that in there, didn't I? Maybe I'm in the Node subdirectory instead of in the demo subdirectory. Let's try that. And let me go copy the guts from that one to this one. And let me try to delete that one. I'm right clicking, I'm just flying there, move to recycle bin. Sure. Let's try it again. Node.js. And look at that. Listening on port 3000. So we have a little web server up and running, listening on that specific port. Well, we all know we can go here to our browser and say localhost that port, and there's the hello world. So that's pretty cheesy, but we've seen at least a few pieces of getting Node installed, using npm to install a package, even using Express, a web server, running that with Node and having a web server up and going. So we're getting some fundamental skills there from just this little demo. Let me see what we got here. Let me clean up a little bit. Cleaning up a little bit. Yeah, I think one of the main things I'm going to go back and touch on is when I installed those packages. That package JSON file is very important. Let's look at him here. And it keeps track of what things you need to install dependencies. Let's see if it'll let me. I'm going to hit break on that, my web server, Control C. I'm going to try like npm install Express again, and let's say -- save. Let's see what that. I think even though it already exists, it's going to run through again, and let's see if anything changed here. Maybe it was already there. Was it there and I didn't see it? But this will put in your app, and maybe that was there and I didn't even see it. When you save, it will put that in your dependency file. So it knows when a guy downloads your code and builds, it will grab that package. If you don't do that, guy downloads your code, builds, you might get an error and have to manually install them versus your package letting them know, hey, I need to build these. You know, there's a little interesting notation there. That's letting them know too, this Express package to be like greater than, I believe, that version or above. So there's different notation on the dependency of packages. Well, for now, I'm going to park it. I